Okay. Going online.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gun. Serious gun.
Okay then. I am here. I can see me.
I can see you too.
Yay. Hey everybody. Carla says, hi Siofra and Ian. How was your Christmas if you celebrate? Well, my daughter celebrates and we went over to her house. We didn't make it to my son's house the last Sunday after the live show because we were still feeling too under the weather. But we had a fun time at my daughter's house and it was pretty entertaining. Watched a horror flick instead of the football they had on when we arrived. I did a good job of changing that. So, yay.
Yes, you did.
Ian says, blessed be and welcome. And Jen says, hello everyone, so happy to be with you all again. I just wanted to thank all of you who warned me about Teal Swan. I looked into your suggestions and yikes. Thank you so much for warning me. I returned the Oracle deck that I had bought and severed all ties it had to my energy. I feel like I dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
Good. We're so happy to hear that. Carla says, best way? What movie? Well, they didn't have much available, so we watched the, what was it called? The Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe. I hadn't seen it. It's a pretty typical kind of, of that type of movie, so there were no big surprises, but it was better than watching a football game. Teresa says, nice today to see your friendly faces. Hi, Teresa. And we actually have sun at the moment, which is interesting considering how many storms we've had flying through. We had a lot of trees that went down this week, and yeah, it was pretty exciting here for a while. Jen says, thank you all so much for having me the courage to speak out. I really had no idea and am so grateful for the warning. You guys are the best. Carla says, we love you all, Jen. Yes, and I believe in letting people make their own decisions, but if people ask me a direct question, I will give them a direct answer. So Aaron says, hello. Hi, Aaron. Astra says, hey, everyone. Hi, Astra. Carla says, you're not y'all, but I do love y'all. Yay, not y'all, but I do love y'all. Okay. Julia says, smiles as she arrives after a long absence. Yes, nice to see you back, Julia. Harry Shannon says, hi from Scotland. Hi, Harry from Scotland. Welcome. It's always nice to see someone from across the pond. We have several people that make it every so often. I know it's later for you guys over there. But hey, the new moon is tomorrow, so you'll probably get it before us, since it's only out during the day. So welcome. Still have a little bit of stuff in my lungs, but it's mostly gone. I say as I start to cough.
I'm thinking about it.
Well, I think the stuff that's left is from way, 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 way down. So I'm in the end of that, and my energy is returning. Thank goodness. Carla says, "Ooh, and it's a black moon since it's the second one in the calendar month." Yes, it is. Master says, I have a funny story. Fairies showed up in my therapy session and flew around the room. My therapist saw them too. They physically manifested. Looked like butterflies made of light. Well, that's awesome. It's always nice when you have
cool.
External verification. Probably a big surprise to your therapist. The Benma archive says, hello, hello. Hi, Benma. I don't think I've seen you on our channel before, at least not as a writing something in. You could have been lurking and I wouldn't know it. Beth says, hi, everyone. I've been sick with the flu. If you don't mind, I'm just listening in. Miss y'all. Hi, Beth. sorry you got the flu too. And yeah, this one was a nasty one, so definitely take care of yourself. Carla says, I'm going to make some moon water. Well, remember, if you're making dark moon water, you need to do it during the day in the closet because the moon is only out during the day. It's not out after dark. Just as a tip. Asher says it was so damn funny. I bet it was. Julia says lots of chaos, but have a new computer. Thank the gods for payment plans. Yay. Carla says feel better, Beth. Trey says hello. Hi, Trey. Welcome. We have all kinds of people jumping in today. It's great.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Now that some of the holidays are over, I guess there's still New Year's coming, but that's in the middle of the week, so it doesn't affect it as much. Beth says hearts. So is everybody ready to let go of the past and embrace the future?
Well, being willing and having
Able?
it happen might not
Be the
be
same?
so easy. Yeah. Speaking for myself only.
Beth says, thank you, everyone. Aster says she's the seer, too. So she was cool about it. She said a few of her clients are having experiences with fairies and gnomes. She's a very grounded person and has helped me to normalize this. Awesome. I'm so glad you found a good person to talk to in person. Carla says, I was gonna make it on the third day when we can see it again, but I'm gonna try the closet method. That's super old school and I love that. Grateful Owl, member for 16 months. Fan support. Hi, everyone. Hi, Siofra and Ian. Hi, Grateful Owl. Congratulations. Julia says, love to all. Thanks to all. Need to get some good future. Yes. Ellen says, hello, Senora Siofra. Hi, Ellen. Welcome. Or Elian, excuse me. My eyes are not as focused as usual. Teresa C. says, I'm ready and willing to let go, but sometimes feeling he's killing me a menace in my life that refuses to let go of me. Yes, we know how this happens. But just got to stay the course and not give in and not allow any connections to be energized and so forth. Golden Mermaid says, hi, Siofra. Hope you're feeling better. I am. Thank you. Still on the end of this, but pretty much over. Ellen says something to me nice in Spanish, which I don't speak. The Ben Ma says, letting go of the past. Any general spell recommendations? Yeah, well, we're always doing that. It's just another opportunity. Every new moon gives us an opportunity to let go of a little bit more. I did a lot of cutting out of people who abused me and burning their pictures in my cauldron in new moon rituals for a number of years, which actually was very useful. And sometimes writing out what I'm letting go of and letting, and burning that in a fire, or you can use any of the elements really to try and release your connection to the past.
Yeah, you can like put that stuff in a rock and bury the rock, or just put it into some water, or better yet, some strong black tea or chamomile, and then put all that into that, and then go dump it into a pond, or preferably running water of some sort, a
Yeah, if
creek
you
or
can
something.
find one. Yeah, and obviously the fire method is pretty simple and straightforward. So you can use any of the elements in order to try and help. It's like speaking to your subconscious. That's the whole point of ritual anyway, is like a direct link to your subconscious mind. And it works with the symbols. And then you follow that up with real world action by, not participating in the activity again, or not engaging with a toxic person in your life, or replacing it with a positive, some kind of change in your behavior that you want to encourage, and it slowly loses its energy. Asher says she says the same thing as you, Siofra, that development of the self and grounding is very important. because I get scared and overwhelmed sometimes, but no one can develop myself besides me. I know it's annoying. I really hated those answers when I was getting them. It's like, you guys are no help at all. I'm like, can't you just make it stop? Carla says, yes, super ready to release the old and invite the new. So, so ready. So mote it be. Teresa says, sorry that the message got garbled. I think I understood it well enough. Carla says, I've done freezer method on new moon. Ice cube, then buried. A rose bush grows atop now. Well, that's nice. And now I write, says hello from Portugal. Awesome. So we have someone from Scotland, someone from Portugal. This is fantastic. We're getting a lot of people over there. One day we actually had someone from India who was quite entertaining. He said, "Is this real?" when he got on, saying, "Yes, this is real and it's happening live right now." And Julia says, "Baths of black walnut and lemon to soak a bit, then get a glass of the water and toss it off your property. Crossroads and streams help." And taking a ritual bath is always a good idea. Anytime you're trying to transform your energy and so forth. Julia says, oh, yes, when you toss it away, turn your back and don't look at it again. Yeah, that's actually pretty standard for most of the hoodoo type stuff, is because that way you're not inviting it back. And a lot of times they recommend going back home in a different route than you came, so that you're not walking the same path back that you used to get there, which is something to remember, because I think that makes a certain amount of sense. It's yeah, you're trying to actually transform the energy completely, so taking a different route back would be a good idea, because then you're walking a new road. Violet says, hi, Siofra and Ian. Hi, Violet. Julia says, oh, yeah, that's always good when possible. Yeah. And I've, had some friends of mine who've done that kind of thing, and it's worked quite well. The freezer spells are simple to do, and they don't take too much preparation. I mean, really, just need a freezer and some water. The Ben Ma says, super grateful. Thanks for the letting go recommendations. I have a hard time with holding on for way longer than I should. That's not an uncommon problem. We all struggle with that, I think. We like to have a sense of control, and sometimes letting go of something feels like you're losing control of a situation, or that you have not succeeded, so not wanting to fail a person or yourself or your path or whatever it happens to be. And yeah, but it's part of the growth of being able to identify what you can change and what you can't change. And in the end, really the only thing you have any control over is yourself, and transforming yourself into a person you can be proud of, and doing things that make you feel good about who you are. Can be frustrating, but Astra says, I noticed that tiny people or elementals are everywhere, on every surface of everything. Like if I look, I'll see them. My friend has actually filmed a tiny little man with a macro camera. The veil is tissue paper thin. It's a macro camera? That's pretty awesome. Jen says, can you explain the closet method, Chifra? Well, you know how people now make moon water by putting the water outside in the full moon. The problem with trying to do that during a new moon is that the new moon is out during the day. So if you don't want to get solar energy in your water because it's daytime, you put the water in the closet and connect it to the new moon in the sky at the time that you're doing it, to imbue your water with that energy. I've never been one that's done much in the way of moon water. That's kind of a new thing. It hasn't been around. It was not there in the beginning of my practice and most traditional forms of paganism and so forth, but it seems like it would make a lot more sense if you're trying to get dark moon energy to not have light in it. And it's like it's there, but you can't see it. And so Your water is in the closet and it's there, but you can't see it. So it kind of fits the symbolism of the processing that you're trying to do. So that's one of the that's just my idea of the closet method. It's like, and then when it gets dark, take it out because the moon is gone. It's like there's only 2 times during the month that the moon is in the sky, um, only in one sky. So during the full moon, the moon is in the night sky, but never in the day sky. And during the new moon, the moon is in the day sky, but not in the night sky. And so any other time of the month, the moon will be in both skies at some point. And depending, of course, on the phase, more or less. So, basic astronomy, which is always good to learn. Aster Luna says, I meant macro lens on her camera. She's pretty gifted with getting beings to physically manifest. Well, that's pretty awesome. I think Barden had some methods that he used with filters to take pictures of elementals. And did he take pictures of spirits and fairies and things too?
Yeah, he has. Uh, dig around somewhere in his books. There's mention of a couple. He used a couple of filters. I think a blue filter for beings on mental plane and a red filter for like elementals and things. But a couple of things. This was when they only had black and white cameras for one thing, and it was a film camera. So I don't know if any of that translates to using a modern camera or not.
Right, because that can change the whole.
But yes, he did have some photographs and things that he had taken that are talked about by his son in the book about
him. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. Jen says, thank you so much. You're welcome. And if that doesn't make sense to you, you don't have to do it. And that's fine. The Ben Ma archive says that's fascinating. I had no idea they could be photographed. Well, I think that is becoming a more potentially common thing because I think it is true that the veil between our realities has gotten thinner.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. It takes some condensation down of the images, so being able to do it is in a certain large respect um, that you have the ability to do it. It's not just the technical aspects of the equipment. You have to materialize down the image to a certain extent.
And they have to be interested in it too, in the process itself, which they may be more interested now. Harry Shannon says, I had experience where a ball was floating above me when I was in bed. It twisted my body around, then my body was in a lock, then it vanished and fell back. Any idea? Sounds like a Kundalini experience.
Kind of what it sounds like to me, yeah.
And it might have manifested as a ball, whether it was a physical ball or ball of energy, but
yeah, the Kundalini manifests as a ball of light a lot of times.
Yeah.
Among many other manifestations of it.
But your description of it sounds like what can happen with people who are having Kundalini awakening. Your body can move into strange positions, and I actually had an experience once where I had to block the Kundalini energy for a period of time to get to a safe place to let it do when I was going through a rather active phase. And when I was able to release it, I actually had only my head, the top of my head, and the bottom of my feet on the bed, and the rest of me was suspended up in the air, like in an arch, and held in place for a couple of minutes, which is not something I can actually do on my own. So it can have some pretty interesting manifestations. Astor says, I'm glad the beings are willing to manifest physically because some people need the validation or they would think they were crazy. Well, yeah, no doubt. Teresa says, does it help your channel to like the live chats? I'm sure.
Yeah, sure it does.
I see no reason why it wouldn't help. They love likes. Harry says, wow, my Kundalini was activated in 2017 and has not stopped, and I spontaneously speak in different languages. Interesting. Maybe some past life memories coming through too.
Could be,
Do you have anyone who's with you who can understand what you're saying in the different languages? Because that's a whole thing in itself. I was reading a story about a young boy who remembered being in the Twin Towers on 9/11 and dreamt about his death when he was like 4, I think it was. He started dreaming about it. And he actually told his parents his name and where he worked and what happened to him and everything. And they were able to verify the information that came through him, which was sort of interesting. That's a more recent event. And Harry says no. Well, you might want to have a tape recorder nearby if it happens again and tape record it. A linguist might be able to tell you what language it is. Astra says, that's pretty cool, Harry. It's a good way to verify it as a real thing, because like a lot of the people that speak in tongues in churches and so forth in a trance-like state are just speaking what sounds like a foreign language but turns out to be gibberish. And so, being able to get external verification of the experience is always helpful for all of us, I think. I know for myself, I want to have, I want to know if what's happening is what I think it is, or if it's something else, because sometimes I'm wrong. I know it's an amazing concept that I could be wrong, but I can be, and I am. And that helps to kind of keep our mental state on track and so forth. So see if you can record it, because it'd be pretty interesting. If it hasn't happened in a while, then don't worry about it. But Kundalini is certainly an extreme, can be an extreme experience, and a lot of different kinds of things can happen. People can have really ecstatic religious experiences and so forth, and some people can think they're being possessed by demons and going insane. So there's a wide range of reactions, which I think are based on both the beliefs of the person who's having the experience, their willingness to be open to it, and their fear level. So the more people are afraid of having the experience, the more intense and unpleasant it seems to become. So it's sort of interesting, energetic
yeah.
feedback kind of thing. I know I had somebody who wrote me once and described what was clearly a Kundalini experience, but they were sure that it was an incubus, and they wouldn't listen to anything I had to say, because there are definitely sensual and sexual overtones, ecstatic energies, and so forth that come forth with Kundalini, and it feels like it's external. It has kind of its own level of intelligence, it seems. Harry says, I asked when the languages were coming out what's happening, and the voice that came out of my mouth said, I've had many lives in different star systems. Okay. Will be difficult to verify languages from other star systems, so it won't be useful information then, unfortunately. Pachia says, hello everyone. Hi, Pachia. How do you know that you're ready for Kundalini awakening? Well, um, you do the work on yourself, and do what you can to clear your mind, to become a more clear individual, to work on your past issues and so forth, and not be triggered easily by everything that happens to you. Psychotherapy can help working through any past traumas that you have in this life, becoming grounded, clearing your energy centers out. The sacred tree meditation that I have up on my site can really help with gently clearing out the energy centers, your chakras, and so forth. Because what happens when the Kundalini comes, the one of the reasons why it becomes violent is because it is trying to work through blockages. So the more you can clear your own blockages, the gentler the experience will become. And so it hits an energetic block in your energy body, and it goes like this, and it doesn't make it through. So it kind of like hits a brick, and it keeps on going and going and going and getting more and more intense until it finally goes like that, and the body will leap, jump, change shape, whatever. Um, and sometimes people look like they're having seizures. I know I was in massage class, and my partner was having his Kundalini rise while I was working on him, and the instructor came over and asked if she should call an ambulance, and I said no, this is normal. He was very active in his Kundalini. He's the one who forced mine to come up more aggressively than I would have wanted, which is sort of an obnoxious thing to do. So, Teresa says, have you ever visited Shadow Realms? What are your thoughts on spending time there? I've been in the place between life and death. I'm not sure if that's what you mean by the Shadow Realms. Um, and it's a very strange place, and there's really nothing to do. And it's probably not a great thing to stay in for long because it can disconnect you from your life energy and from the life that you're living in and from the present and sort of spoof you out of time. And some people could have a hard time coming back. Jen says something else in Spanish. Apparently, she understands Elian. Thank you so much. Julia says, yes, there are certain paths where people are determined to demonize any self improvement or enlightening experience, especially if it has sensual overtones. Oh, I know. Oh, this is so bad. It's like, oh no, your body enjoyed itself. Kill it. Whatever you do. Astra says, I read the sexual sensations are helpful to rewire the brain for pleasure and creativity instead of fear. It helps the brain relax, but people have so much fear and shame issues surrounding sexuality, especially if they've been raised in a Christian household or another kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Fundamentalist religion. Most of the fundamentalist religions around the world have got a thing against that. Astra says have they have a hard time just letting the energy do its thing. Yeah. Harry says, my body shakes and vibrates. The energy can be orgasmic. Then I go into a state of trance. Yep, definitely sounds like Kundalini. Jen says, Elian is here from Spain, Siofra. That's what they said in Spanish. Cool. Thank you. I'm glad we have someone who can interpret since I am not bilingual or any lingual. Just me and English is about it. I think it's wonderful that other people have multiple languages that they can speak and I have nothing but admiration for their abilities. Astor says, so the Kundalini is intelligent and knows what it's doing, but people bring their own spin on it and get scared. Pretty
Yeah,
much.
pretty much exactly. Yeah.
Teresa says, I'm thinking of a shadowy realm akin to Hades. So visiting the dead. I mean, it's not really like that. I don't think that that is where the dead go. So I'm not sure if it's an imaginary place that you're visiting or if it's a real place in a different astral realm or something,
Yeah.
considering the fact that absolutely anything and everything
Can
can
exist.
exist.
So everybody's hell exists, and so everybody's heaven exists too, especially if there's, multiple people or religion based on it, then they're bringing that into creation by their own thought forms and things.
Yeah, and just because you find a reality in an astral realm that seems to like be real doesn't mean that it is real in the sense that it has like um I mean any dream that we have is real when we're dreaming it and exists on the astral plane. And if someone was able to, they could watch or see or experience your dreams. But that doesn't mean that they're real
Yeah,
places.
and all the more reason to watch out, for what you're doing, because any one of these. Well, I guess I don't. I guess I really don't have anything to add that's going to be helpful to that. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's very true.
So I guess the answer to your question, if it's a good idea to hang out there, I think the answer is no. I don't think it's a good idea. Because getting more and more ungrounded is like the opposite of what you should be trying to do. You should be trying to get more grounded in this reality instead of ungrounded in other realities. So Ben Moss says, is it true that being born into Abrahamic religions is considered active spiritual contracts, for example, baptized babies, that we need to let go of in order to take back control over our spirituality? Well, we certainly need to work through the subconscious and unconscious contracts we think we have made. And a lot of people that go from one of the Abrahamic religions and become pagan go through a period of time in their own progress where they're incredibly fearful that they're wrong and that these other guys were right and that, the devil, whoever, is going to come and get them and they're going to be
Yeah,
punished for having new beliefs or for denying the old beliefs and so forth. And that is a personal thing people have to decide to work
but
through.
but having a baby baptized in no way is pact like or in no way affects the baby in a pack-like manner or anything like that. When it comes to packs and things like that, individuals have to be old enough to choose that and make that choice willingly and stuff. I mean, they can make accidental packs, but you don't really have one put on you by somebody else, so the babies are safe. Whether or not baptism does anything, that's for another discussion and stuff, but in no way it makes the baby obligated in any form to any being or anything.
Yeah. But yeah, working through it on your own, you have to decide. I've seen some people get to that point and then revert back to whatever the religion was because they don't feel confident enough, or are willing to take on the role of being their own spiritual advisor. I mean, when you're walking this kind of a path, you're in charge of your own development. You're in charge of what happens to you, what comes next, what you do, and so forth. And you don't have like an external authority that decides these things for you.
Yeah, you can have guides that will help, but they'll generally never, it'll just be a suggestion, and then you have to decide whether or not you're going to follow that, or whether it's important to you, or if it's meaningful, or if it's even from your guides or not.
Yeah, and taking charge of your own spiritual evolution, it's a whole different ballgame. Um, so yeah, let's see. Julia says, I can certainly relate to only being proficient in English. Yeah. The enemy says, or anemone says, Hi Shifra, do you have any videos about stand-in walk-in souls? No, I don't, because I'm not sure how accurate that is, although I have heard of a few cases where we think it's true,
Right, with
like with Barden, for
Barton.
example,
Barton is one of the few examples. I don't think it happens like
all the
it's
time.
very extremely rare, I believe.
But I've
Extremely
not
rare.
met someone who's had that. I've met someone who had two different aspects of her own soul in there, a past life that she was murdered in, and a current life where she was not in control of the past life personality because it wanted to kill people. And that's a completely different thing. That would not be a walk in kind of situation. But I mean, there's so many things out there, and I know a lot of them, but that's not one I know personally. So I try to be, um, you know, come from a place of experience when I can. Harry says, Astraluna, yes, it's an intelligence. My hands move to different parts of my body as I speak these languages. It feels healing, like a release. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it.
And Teresa says, I was talking with spirits in the shadow realm. Okay, so you can talk to spirits anywhere. Whether they say useful things or not is going to be entirely up to your own experience and what you do with it. Carla says, what are spiritual contracts? Um,
That would be basically a pact where, uh, for example, the most standard one people think about it, and there's other variations and ways it can happen, but stuff. But basically, you agree that if the being does you certain favors in this lifetime, and generally they will only do this for very, very advanced magical people who can serve them good service in the afterworld, then whatever amount of energy that being spends helping you out in this life, you have to expend that same amount of energy helping the being out to do its deeds, whatever it is in the afterlife. So, if it's a being of Saturn, it could get pretty extreme with you meting out justice or judgment to people. Who knows, if it was a being of Venus, it would be, that type of appropriate thing associated with Venus spirits and that. So, what the type of work you would do afterwards would relate directly to what the being does that you invoked in the first place. It's highly frowned upon. It delays your personal progress for some time, and it can delay you for sometimes long times after your contract is up because you just don't realize where you're at and what's going on for a while. And sometimes you can even get so stuck in that realm, if it turns out to be a big thing, that you basically lose your humanity and become a being of that realm. And this is all from Barden's stuff. So, specifically where all that came from Barden's material. He talks about it pretty
but it makes a certain
specifically.
amount of sense
Yeah.
because, Like from my own personal experience, remembering a afterlife from one of my other lives, I realized that, you knowing where you are and what's going on makes a huge difference into where you end up. And from my paranormal work, same thing. It's like people, spirits that don't know they're dead. If I can help them understand what happened, then they can move on and go somewhere else. So that whole perception is very important when it comes to that. And your best option obviously is to not trying to get some other spirit to do the work for you. Your always better option is to learn the skills you need yourself, or to not do that now because you aren't ready to do that if you need to have that kind of help.
Yeah, and in most cases, in most cases, I understand a person works off their obligation after life and then they're allowed to proceed on, but it doesn't happen in every case, apparently.
Yeah. And Carla says, I do think we need to come to terms with thought forms. Yeah, the
Yeah.
ones that we generate for sure, and other people's too. Because other people's thought forms will invade your space depending on how well you've gotten rid of your own thought forms that might have similarities. That would be, how they attract one another, and how, like, when there's a crowd of people and all of a sudden they all go crazy at the same time, they're all infected with the same stupid notion, like, starting tires on fire and rolling cars upside down, or whatever. That's like a group thought form, like the whole crowd, everybody sort of gets infected by this idea, and they feed it, and as long as they feed it, it keeps on rolling.
That's true. That's part of the reason with feeding all these things. And that's how a lot of the conspiracy theories work. Once they reach a certain point, they start feeding themselves. And the more people get pulled in, the more they believe in it, then they just get stronger and stronger.
Yep. Pastia says, what happens if you make a pact and then negate it by verbally requesting to negate it? And can you make another pact later? It
Actually,
doesn't work that way.
well, it's actually a pretty good question. If you go to make a pact and you do it willingly and you know you're doing it and everything, if the being hasn't done anything for you yet, then you can negate it. But if the being has put forth any amount of energy, then you're going to have to pay that back. You might stop it halfway through its job, but you still have that much amount of energy to pay back the being. So it's just like a quid pro quo, except it's not on a promise. It's more like an energetic thing, so that you have no choice. If the being puts out the energy for you, you will give up that much energy to the being one way or another, either after death or before death. In some cases, you can. My preference is like giving offerings to a being, where you give it the energy from your offering. You give it that energy to do the work beforehand, so you don't end up needing to pay off anything later. That kind of stuff is much better way of working with spirits, I think.
And yeah, you certainly can make another pact later if that's the case.
Yeah,
Julia says self determination is an abhorrent idea to most fundies. Independence is a no no state.
sure.
Absolutely. Because, the whole point of most of the religious approach is that you can't do it yourself. You don't know enough. You're easily tricked. You have no power of your own. If anything great happens, then you've failed. Something wonderful could happen and you miss it, and then you could end up going to hell for it. I mean, it's a no-win situation where it really helps to try and take away all power from you and give it to another authority, whether it's the authority in the church or the higher authority of the gods, whatever it might be. But you're giving over your will, and you're negating your own will in order to do it. So they really don't want you to exercise free will. That's like
Yeah,
really anathema, because then they've lost you. And that's not what they're after. But for some people, it's helpful because they either can't or won't think for themselves, or they
that's
need to
true.
have some kind of external structure in order to tell them how to behave.
We had yeah, we knew somebody who worked for us that had those kind of issues. They either had to have an authority figure over them or be the authority figure over somebody else, and there was no in between. There was no partnership. There was no with. It was either above or below. No other options were available to this person.
Yeah. And it's like that duality thinking.
Yeah,
Is like polarity, duality kind of thinking sort of leaves out a whole bunch of other potential options. It's not one or the other.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole idea is absurd on the face of it that there is a God and an anti God facing off against each other all the time. There are not, it's not demons against angels. I mean, there are beings that are called angels that mankind has chosen to call angels, and beings that mankind has chosen to call demons, but they're not at war with each other. It's not a constant war. That's a total misconception of people who can't see the idea that opposite things may work together. Breaking down can be considered a negative thing, except that's recycling the forest. The pine needles break down, the leaves break down, they feed insects, they feed other things. So you could think of that as just destruction, but it's not negative anymore. The negative beings do jobs that humankind decrees are negative, and that's all a human judgment. Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to go off on a high
No,
horse
it's true.
there.
So Carlos says empathic stuff is heavy. I ground a lot. Good. Grounding is important. Robert says, as an empath, besides using crystals, which are effective, is there any other tool we can use for protection? Hello, all. Hi, Robert. Grounding and shielding and all that other stuff. It's like, and practice, and then taking breaks. It's like Ian and I, when we went to my daughter's house with a lot of people on Christmas Day. The next day, we didn't go anywhere. It's like we need to take a break from too much interaction with people, and so balance is really important
Yeah,
for
well,
especially for
yeah.
empaths.
And somebody
Um,
who has social issues like
well,
me,
yeah, but that's partly the empath thing too,
it is.
and so you have to take care of you. Carla says I use Numite around my neck and Moldavite in a ring. Paccio says, I understand. Add and payback in this life is through health, correct? Not necessarily. It doesn't mean you're going to lose your health to pay back a spirit. It's going to depend on what kind of contract you made and what kind of energy it requires. So I think that is a common misconception. You might have to, I don't know, do some social work.
Well,
Uh,
yeah. It can be through health though. That
yeah,
that is that is one of the possibilities, but there's
but it
lots of
doesn't
others
have to
also.
be.
Yeah.
It's not a one size fits all scenario. So, you could have something else that you can do, like
Yeah.
work in a homeless shelter or help in a recycling plant or help to, work positive things in politics or something to affect the environment in a positive way and not necessarily lose your health.
Generally, though, it's better just not to make the contracts because you don't really need to. And generally, uh, you're talking about generally talking about negative beings. You're talking about making a contract, and I don't know why everybody's so obsessed with dealing with negative beings. The positive beings are just as powerful and can do as much, and usually better, unless you're looking to destroy your enemies, which the positive beings probably won't do for you.
Probably not.
If you're looking at becoming a dictator or something. But other than that, everybody's normal needs and things, I don't know why everybody obsesses over the negative beings all the time.
That's probably because
The
of that whole
Solomons go at
duality
it and
thing,
that. I
it's
mean,
like,
well, yeah,
you don't want to work for the
it's
one, you
not a
want to work for the
battle.
other.
What
Yeah.
you do, if you're a perfectly balanced magician, you work with whichever one is most appropriate to solve your problem. And unless you really want to be a negative person and go for the black magic, that's 99.9% of the time the positive beings can do it and more effectively and without some of the risks you take, and you're not having to bind them and make pacts in general, and they're more willing to tell you if they won't do something because it's against your karma
Well, it
and
sure is
things.
a
I
lot
mean,
easier, I can tell
yeah,
you. A lot less stressful,
yeah,
too.
it makes a lot more sense.
I hang out with my buds that are spirits and I help them, they help me, we kind of like have a friendship. It's a
Yeah,
cooperative relationship that I have with the spirits that I work with.
exactly. And all the grimoires and things, all the ceremonial magicians and things of the past, it's always adversarial, threatening the demons and threatening to burn their seal, impale their seal on the end of your magical sword and burn it over stinking herbs and fumes and torture the spirit to get it to do what you want.
Yeah.
Man,
Those,
and not only that, it's so much work. Then you just end up with a pissed off spirit being who just wants to come smash you. Whereas you can approach a being that welcomes you and is friendly to you and will
Yeah,
talk to you, and I mean,
that was bad.
it makes no sense. Everybody wants to accomplish their goals by choosing the worst possible way. I don't know. It seems backwards to me.
Counterintuitive.
Sorry. Again, I guess it's one of those days for me.
Apparently, it's one of those days for you. So Robert says, new mic, yeah, it's effective, but it makes me dizzy if I wear it for too long. Yeah. And Harry says, I'm very grateful, Shifa, for answering my questions. Thank you. You're welcome. That's one of the things, that's why we do the show, because people have questions, and if we can answer them, we will. Carlos says, barefoot outside, Robert, cold shower, etc., saltwater bath, Shifa's tree meditation, etc., breathe. Julia says, many heathen Nordic spiritual beliefs are semi-based on what could be termed a quid pro quo basis.
True.
Robert says, I will have to admit to the church that I am such a bad boy. See, I only believe in me being a rebel. Cold shower or cold water on the hands is also great. Well, running water is good to help you ground. You don't even have to be cold. You can just put your hands underneath a faucet and let the water, especially as an empath, it's good to get other people's emotions out of you. And you just imagine as the water is going over your hands that you're letting go of anything that isn't you.
It pulls all the water out and it washes you clean internally, washes your astral body clean, washes your soul clean, however you want to visualize it.
Right.
Run that stuff right down into the water and let it get sucked out of you.
And if you have any kind of a job that works with people directly, it's a good idea anytime you go to the bathroom to wash your hands to use that visualization. Because you're not just cleaning your physical hands and getting germs and stuff off, you're also getting excess junk that you may have picked
the
up.
The elements are very useful if you start getting the hang of it for various things like that.
Julia says, but hey, at least you get to live in the hall of the gods doing what you best enjoyed in life. Robert says, some wore many, many jewels like rings and necklaces with iron, etc. That way it takes much more time for the entities to reach you. Astra says, yep, very true. Julia says, just on the basis of being rather sensually oriented, has a personal bias against cold showers. Well, I'm with you on that.
I mean, Barden's he recommends the cold showers in his book, and it's the only instruction in his I don't go for. I don't go for the cold showers.
Hey, if we lived somewhere where it was an important thing to do, whatever. Teresa says, I am trying to build shields using the 4 elements. Do you have any tips on how to do this well? Well, I mean, you work with each of the elements, the pentagram, the elemental pentagram. That's the best way of actually working with it.
And actually, that'd be a good recommendation, a good place right there for the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, because it's much more than a banishing ritual, but it will provide that defense and shields from each of the elements, especially if you do it properly. Not only are you using the elements as shields, but you're also using the head of the elemental beings. And the normal ones, they usually use the archangels, Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel, Michael, but you can substitute the pagan versions of that if you want. We use the really old ones, Gob and Nexa, and the old heads of the elements for that.
Yeah, Peralta and Jin. Yep. And actually, the video you watched on that, she just watched that video. And that would be the one we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's a good one to practice.
You can use it for self-development, but it also can be a very solid shield, using the 4 elements and the 4 elemental kings as shields. So, very helpful for that purpose.
So Astra says, yep, empaths get overwhelmed easily and have to work harder at feeling safe when being social. Yep, definitely. Robert says, balance is key. I agree, Siofra. That is the supreme challenge, because often I don't know what balance is, because I do not detect it all the time, or I am prepared for any future contact or change. And Robert says, yeah, Astra, it sucks. And that's the thing, is like we need to have empaths, so we keep the human spirit alive. We are the nature of humanity, really, when it comes down to it. And people who have no empathy are, in my opinion, not human. Because I think that is a requirement for being a human being, is to have empathy. You don't have to always be an empath, but you have to have empathy. Carlos says, the health thing sounds like a little Christian dogma. Well, yeah, I think that's probably where it comes from. Patya says, at Siofra and at Ian, is there a way to have a private 1-1 session with both of you? And absolutely don't want to get involved in black magic. Yes, I have now paid for a Zoom account, and so we can set something up. Send me an email to schiefersmagicalcove@gmail.com, and we'll see what we can do. Torian says, so good to see you, first timer. Well, welcome. Welcome to the channel. Robert says, black magic sucks and isn't strong anyway. Robert says, hello, Torian. Love the name. Patya says, at this stage, I'm unable to discern the good spirits from the bad ones. Well, I don't like to even use those two words. Yeah, I understand. Robert says, me too, Patjas. Harry says, send love to the demons. Yes, and if they don't like it, then you'll know. Jam LeBlanc says, black magic comes back to them, I heard. Well, anything you do comes back to you, so good or bad. So, yeah, choose what you do.
Keep in mind, do good to others, you'll get good back in return.
You may not get good back from the person you did good for, because a lot of the people that you do kind things for might be assholes. Yeah, but the universe takes notice and will prepare things to try and help you out in a crisis somewhere down the line.
Yeah, that kind of karma is like an energetic thing. It's all like energetic thing, good or bad. It's like you put a certain energy out there and it goes out there and it does things, and it's like dropping pebbles into a pond. You get ripples, and those ripples spread out and they end up bouncing off a wall somewhere and coming back to you, and you get energy back that's directly related to energy you put out, but it doesn't necessarily come back in the same form or in a form that people even recognizes. But generally, that's how it works.
For example, my daughter, her car broke down in the middle of nowhere in a place she had never been before. A random person drives by, stops. Turns out he's a mechanic. He knows exactly what's wrong with her car, and he fixes it for her right there on the spot. And, you know, these are the things that happen to people that are doing their best and going with the flow and so forth and helping others. And she is one of those kind of people. She helps a lot of people that don't appreciate her at all, which I find quite annoying.
Yeah, you know, it's too bad the people, of course, doing the black magic don't believe it. It's too bad they don't know it, but they're really destroying themselves, you know.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like beating your head against the wall.
Everything they do to somebody else will come back in energetic form to them one way or another, and affect them in an equivalently bad way as they affected somebody else. So best we can hope for is that usually black magicians don't take the time and effort to really learn what they're doing and do it right, so their efforts are usually pretty weak. I mean, there can be exceptions, and there have been a few in the past, as Barden talks about, but yeah, a lot of times that what happens is they're ineffective because they don't put the effort in to really, because you want to be effective and strong. It's just like becoming a muscle builder. You know, you got to build up those muscles and improve yourself.
Yep, practice. Torian says, thank you, Robert. And Robert says, yes, Jam, it does. And Carla says, yep. Astra says, people think they're being edgy working with demons, but I've had evil people get scared, hiss at me, and run away. So I think angels are more badass. Angels do not play. Well, yeah. Yeah. And Robert says, demons are overrated. Witchy Wicca, haha. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I was going to be, like, mugged in San Francisco, I was just me and cast a circle out loud and called in the god and the goddess for protection, and the gang of idiots that were about ready to assault us ran away. So they thought, oh my god, she's the real thing. We need to get the hell out of here. So, like, yes, I freaked them out. And sometimes that's the way that works. Astor says, laugh out loud, Julia. Jam says, cold shower, keep you young, or wake you up. Oh, yeah, no kidding.
Wake you up, all right.
Carla says, I use the archangels. Angela says, blessings to you. I just found your channel by way of your video called Working with Faye. I'm so glad to be here and learn more. Well, welcome, Angela. We're getting a lot of new people today. This is awesome.
That's awesome. Yes, it is.
And it's like, and with the new moon coming tomorrow, it's like signs of things to come, right? So, yay, welcome. Jen says, all good advice. Thank you. Teresa says, I've been listening to the guided meditations, which is how I got the idea about a combined elemental shield that I can utilize throughout my day, but was unsure as how to combine them into a shield. Well, you have them around you. There's like 4 shields, boundaries, barriers, elements, or whatever, plus the spirit above and below. So you can visualize them as the pentagrams themselves, and they can just move around you
Yeah, it
and
if
pull in things that are good and reject things that are bad. You just sort of program them to do
yeah,
that.
if you have, if you research and read the literature, what you end up doing is you put up a pentagram in each quarter, each elemental quarter. You do it in the color of that element and with the elemental features of that. You bring that element in to purify all impurities away from you and purify the space. You've got the element as a shield around you in pentagrams. You also make a circle at the same time, which is an indication of all things and being in control of all things. And you'll have to look up the symbology of that. So you've got the pentagrams on a ring surrounding you with the elements in charge, and then you invoke each of the elemental guardians at each quarter to guard you and also protect you. And you go on from there. I mean, that's how you get all 4 elements, and you got them protecting you with a big shield. I mean, you really want to use it for that purpose. That's the best ritual I can think of,
Well, absolutely.
and it has the advantage of having been used for, well,
Thousands of years.
I don't know. The pentagrams have been as a put together as a ritual. We only know for sure that it originated somewhere in 1890 as a first reference we see, though we see pictures, we see bits and pieces of it coming out in Levi and other writers. So it was probably known about long before then. But basically, it came to light with the Golden Dawn, which was formed around 1888.
If you want to get
But
creative with it, you can
sorry,
always imagine that they're spinning around you and looking for things and going zap, 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 and then pull, 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 and then zap, zap, zap.
yeah.
You have good imagination. I'm sure you can come up with something.
But you want something effective for protection. That's but like everything else, also, the more repetition you put into it, the more protective it is, and the more easier it becomes. It starts out being difficult at first. As you do it more, it's like engraving a groove in the universe, and it gets easier and easier to do and becomes more and more effective with
Right.
less effort.
So that's like your personal wards, then you've got your home wards, and that's all about. It's to be able first your wards, your home wards notify spirit beings who is and who is not permitted to make entry and what energy is and is not welcome. And you have them charged up to such an extent after you've done them for a while that if something comes by and is trying to like be bad, it'll zap them. And sometimes you won't even know it happened. It's very rare for something to get through mine to the point where I can actually see it. I've had that happen just a few times, but most of the time it's just like, hey, this is my space. I'm in charge of it. This is my universe. These are my rules. You will follow them or else. And if you don't like it, too bad. It's like, but it is. It's that keep on going. So Pachita says, thank you. You're welcome. Jam says, I just cried because I saw the Korean plane where the people on the plane were texting to their family last minute. So sad. Yes, it is sad. Um, it's unfortunate that that kind of thing happens. Shay says, that's cool. You have a Zoom account now, Siofra. Yes, thank you, Shay. Harry says, a demon is absent of love, and love cures all things. So maybe sending love can help heal them, and we will have a loving universe.
Harry, I agree with your sentiment there, but
We need them.
well, we don't know that a demon is absent of love, and that's the thing. One of the points I was trying to make. Demons and angels are just terms that got given to them by the Christian religion. You know, in my opinion, the negative beings are not demons, and demons as such don't really exist. Negative beings have been um, portrayed as demons, for example, in the Guetta of Solomon. But what they are is really beings that do a needed, nothing is unnecessary in this universe. They do a needed job. It's just that people judge it as bad because of their misunderstanding. The demons aren't necessarily without love. That's not even something I'm gonna delve into. But they're not really demons. That's the whole point. They're beings that form a certain working of the universe by having certain jobs to do that people find unpleasant. Just like Saturn beings are not negative. I mean, there's a lot of aspects of the Saturn that's good. Saturn associates with the Akasha, but people think of them as judges and beings that come down and do nasty stuff. Just look at the astrological stuff about Saturn, but none of it's true. It's just people's misinterpretation of things. Mold is bad in your cottage cheese, but it's great if it's breaking down something that's going to be recycled into the environment and become a nutrient for some other plant. It's all a matter of the right thing in the right place. So, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be making too much of these things, but
Well, see, there's a definition of what is a loving universe. And if your definition is there's no conflict, there's no change, there's no transformation that's uncomfortable, then that's not the universe we really want to live in.
yeah, but I
Because
watch,
reality is not that.
my opinion is that demons and angels, the way they are considered in the Christian religions, do not exist as such. There are beings that do a positive job and beings that do a negative job, and that's it. And that negative doesn't mean bad, it just means they do stuff that we don't want to get involved with. I mean, who wants to go eat a bunch of mold off the forest floor? But you sure want it recycling your stuff and growing worms to, make the soil work and
Right.
all that
All that
stuff. Yeah,
stuff.
they all work in harmony, and that's the thing. If you got the true perspective, the negative beings are working in harmony with everything in the universe and should be respected just as much as the good beings. That doesn't mean you need to follow those practices, though.
Right. That's a whole different subject.
Yeah,
Okay. So, Jancat says, oh no, excuse me. Um, Jami Jam says, that's good. Esther says, I love that story. Good job. Robert says, Siofra, I have a gnome as a spiritual guide. Can you tell me about them if you happen to know about this race of beings? Gnome is the earth elemental being. And that probably means that grounding is something that you really need to focus on a lot. Gnomes can help you find hidden treasure in the earth and help you with stones and rocks and understanding them. So that could be one of the reasons why you're connecting with them right now because you're studying a lot of stones.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. That doesn't mean you might not get other ones later, but that's what I know about the gnomes. And they're very interesting looking. They are all very unique and they have lots and lots of features and facial hair and noses and things. Sometimes wild hair. They're pretty cute, actually, I think. So Sandcat says, hi, Shifa and Ian. Hi, Sandcat. Teresa says, thanks, Ian, but what I want is what can I carry with me as I go about my day? I understand how to do that all in a circle. You don't have to do it in a circle. You just do it around yourself and you take the circle with you. You are the circle. Robert says, who
There's all
here?
kinds of plans for talismans and things out there, though.
Well, right.
You can look up, yeah.
Yeah, Robert says, who has seen the new Nosferatu? I heard that it sucked. Ha ha. I haven't seen it. And then Teresa says, spinning is good, Shifra. Astor says, yeah, I need to practice my words. This is good encouragement. And Carla adds down there, shield in a pouch, which, yeah, you can have talismans or stones, charged up stones, herbs and stuff like that in a pouch and carry that with you. I've done that many times over the years. So,
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of ways to make, protective talismans and things. I'm wanting to come up with a video. I want to do for our channel a blessing, divine blessing talisman that I want to make, which hopefully as soon as we can find a little sheet of copper for me to cut some talismans out, I will
yeah,
get that up. Hopefully, I can be really slow about videos, so I tend to get them done fast. I just never,
it takes a while.
yeah.
Carlos says, my lunar angels, it's a course, are Gabriel, Anael, and Sachiel. Gabriel's crystal is a moonstone, Anael is a rose quartz, and Sachiel is amethyst. Maybe you could carry a crystal designated to your specific needs. And Carlos says, shield in a pouch.
Yeah, and, there's all kinds of ways to do it. But one of the ways that you can use that covers all the four elements are like a piece of petrified wood, basically an earth related stone. So petrified wood, hematite, anything like that that's a heavy earth based stone. Earth can be used to as sort of a substitute for all the elements. So, because it contains the electromagnetic fluid and is formed out of all four elements, so you can kind of use that. So, petrified wood or something earth related would be good. You could also engrave like on a piece of lead. Lead is good for earth shield. There's all kinds of methods, literally unlimited amounts of methods of getting what you want. I just look up one, and the important part is, of course, how much attention and care you give to it and how much you charge it up.
So Teresa says, I've been using dogs within my energy field to guard me. A couple of times I had dreams that a dog cornered something bad. One dog cornered a badger. I was being psychically attacked. The dog woke me up. Well, having spirit guardians, animal guardians is a good thing. I've got both a panther and a bear that have done that for me too. So that's a perfectly good method. Robert says, you're right, Ian. Too many people saw horror movies.
Yeah.
Ashley said, that's a good point, Ian. I don't think they're demons either. Well, actually, the word demon comes from the word daemon, Daemon, which just meant
originally
spirit.
just kind of meant spirit, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't mean good or bad. It just meant a spirit.
Yeah.
So in that case, all spirits are daemons. So
Yeah.
Carla says, I was taught long ago that demons are teachers. It's like the greater and lesser key.
Well, the good beings are too, though. That's the thing. You don't have to go to the demons for it. You know, you should just look at Barden's second book. He lists hundreds, and I mean hundreds and hundreds of good spirits, along with their exact attributes, exactly what they do, the actual correct spirit seals, because they've all been scribed in the Akasha and they've all been verified to work. He did all the work and set it up so you don't get any of this. The stuff like in the Goetta, the seals are half wrong and messed up and things like that. And yeah, if you want to work with spirits at all, go with Barden stuff. Absolutely, in my opinion.
Okay, so Astor says, yeah, like ants in the kitchen are a sign we need to do inner work. No one thinks ants are evil.
True.
Although you don't like them in your sugar.
That's not a bad example, though.
No,
Yeah.
it's a good example.
Yes, it is.
So Harry says, great point. Yeah, like that, Ian. Resonate. And Shay says, at Ian, you're on fire today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. Jam says, this is happening to us to have us wake up, see the truth. That's going on around in this world. Well, hopefully. I mean, there's always been some people that are awake. And
yeah.
In every century or in every generation or so forth. But I think now more people are starting to wake up and become more human and more clear.
Well, at least it's more available to people because all the information is available through the internet. I mean, I have a bunch of old tantric texts collected that I never would have got in real life without having tons of money and research money and grants to go to India and all that stuff. I have all that information right at my fingertips now, and it's wonderful. I love it.
Astor says the popular ideas of people being overcome by supernatural evil is a thing in Hollywood movies because of Christianity. It all gets traced back to Christian mythology. They really love their devil.
Yes, they do.
And even non-Christians are affected by this egregore. And this is true. Right now, ironically, we're rewatching the entire 15 seasons of Supernatural, which is all of that. But we don't take it seriously, so we just enjoy watching the show. But other people might, I mean, and it's true. Supernatural has influenced witchcraft, especially in the terms of using salt on everything.
But they have so much stuff that's valid, like the African dream root
all
that they come up with, and a lot of that stuff is actually the real. Like you can buy African dream root, and it pretty much does. I mean, not to the extent.
Yeah, but they hated witches in that.
Yeah. Well, I know.
They have their issues.
Yeah. Well,
but anyway, it's a fun TV show.
It's a spoof, and I think they know they're spoofing on it. So,
well, yeah, it's a fun TV show, unless you think it's real.
Yeah.
In which case, you're in trouble. Jam says 2025 is change and truth and women power. I guess we'll see. Astor says it's frustrating to deal with people with these mindsets. Well, yeah, because there's only certain ways they can think, and they're not allowed to think certain other ways, so you're limited in your ability to communicate. Shay says, Ian, looking forward to your divine talisman making video. Robert says, Siofra, how to know if I really am grounded?
Thank you, Shay.
Um, that's a good question. How do you know if you're really grounded? You're not prone to flights of fancy. You're in your body. You know what's happening in your body. You're familiar with, your this particular organism here and
Well,
what it needs and so forth. Um, you're able to be in the moment in the life that you're in instead of always traveling somewhere else in your mind. I'm trying to think because I was not grounded as a kid. I had to become grounded. And, as a kid, I did a lot of gazing out and seeing spirits and so forth. You have control over your abilities. You can decide when to use them, when not
I
to.
might describe it as dealing with reality instead of letting it shine for some fantasy or imagination. I mean, that's what people using drugs and things to block it out the present. And a person who's more grounded is somebody who more deals with things, who just deals with them and doesn't like beat around the bush about it and things like that. It comes out in a person as more practicality, being practical at dealing with things rather than oh, it'll change by and by, or that kind of thing's all the airy, what you would call the airy
Yeah, and
fantasies about
also
things.
it has to do with not being triggered by other people's emotions and what's going on around you so much.
And
It's
that's
like,
the solidity of Earth.
right, it's the practicality and solidity and the ability to be in the center yourself, your own center, and not just be out. So, Jam says, I feel it's like a horror movie and we are in it. Well, see, the thing is that maybe it is like that, but we can decide how our roles are going to play out. And regardless, we cannot control the other 8+ billion people that are out there. We can only deal with what's happening to us directly. And so, how the things out there that don't make any sense to me and to Ian and to other people like us, it's like if you can't directly affect it or change it, and there's nothing you can do about it, taking care of ourselves becomes a priority. I had this dream the other night, and in the dream, I was spouting, and one person in the dream, I said, if you don't think of yourself as sacred and take care of yourself first and your own health and your well-being, you will not be useful to anyone else, and you will not be able to help anyone else. And someone in the dream says, she's talking like a high priestess, which I thought was hysterical in the dream and when I woke up. But it's true. It's like we lose this sense of, there's this whole thing that comes from Christianity about martyring yourself and look and everyone else is more important than you are and so forth. And if you take care of yourself and take care of you and so forth, you're being selfish, you're being egotistical, and that's a whole thing that you have to work through. And it's like your body is the thing that's going to carry you through this life. So it's important for you to take care of it. If you don't take care of it, it's not going to be here very long. My mom just turned 95 yesterday. So she's doing pretty well. I'm about to turn 75 in a couple of weeks. And, taking care of whatever you want to call it, my meat suit or my temple, um, that becomes a priority because that allows me to do what I do and to try and be helpful when I can, but also recognizing the fact that people won't get help if they don't want it, or they won't understand what you're saying if they're not in the right position to hear it. And remember, everybody is in a different state of development. The idea that everyone is the same age, spiritually speaking, makes no sense. Things are constantly being born around us all the time. New species are coming up and so forth. And there's no reason to make this weird assumption that human spirits are any different, that we all were created in one instant and that's all there are. And it's not true. There's new people and new spirits coming in all the time. And they're naive and they're young and they don't understand things. They don't have the experience base that some of us do. And, it's like you have to deal with the aftermath of that. But remember, you cannot wake someone else up until they're ready to wake up themselves. You can plant seeds, which is something I've done a lot of, and give people a kernel of an idea, and it might never take root, but it might, like 20 years from now, all of a sudden something clicks in their head and they suddenly realize um, something about themselves, something that they can do with that information and so forth. But that's the thing is like, it doesn't have to feel like you're in hell. You can make it something different for yourself and for where you're at. And your choices that you make and how you view what happened to you. If you know enough about me, you know my childhood was a horror show. And the things that happened to me as a young adult was a horror show. And I could look at that and think that I was in hell. But I've transformed that in myself and not let it win, them win, whatever, the way I phrase it in my head. And you can do that too. You may not be able to change the circumstances, the people, the situations, the events that are happening around us, but you can change how you deal with them and how they affect you because it's about your spiritual development. So I guess that's my speech for the day. But, try. It's like somebody said that happiness is a choice, and I think it's true. You have to like really find it though. So Harry says, "What a show that is! Supernatural, brilliant." Sandy says, "Nice to catch you live." Well, hi Sandy. Jen says, "When I was a child, I was attacked physically several times by black beings. I've always thought they were demons. What are your thoughts?" Negative beings for sure, and I don't know. I was attacked by something that historically, from all the literature, would be considered a demon when I was about 14.
Well, a lot of the beings are like people. The people can be what we would judge to be evil. They can be just mean. And unfortunately, there are some beings and things out there like that.
Maybe you looked like a tasty morsel, and they were like, hungry.
Just the discussion about the demons doesn't mean that there aren't mean beings out there who might just want to hurt people. Or, just like people. A lot of the spirit beings are like people in that sense.
Yeah.
That's basically about it. There are definitely just some beings you don't want to fuss with because they're just, or there are some that are more animalistic that might, just attack you because that's their nature because they're more like an animalistic type of being, like a bobcat or something. Or.
Well, and when we're children, we show up. That's the thing. Us empaths and psychically gifted people, we show up on the other side. So we're a lot easier to find. And it could be that that's just what it was. I've tried to try and figure out what happened to me and to put it in some kind of a context that help a narrative that helps me to understand. But the reality is, I don't know. I don't know what the reason was. I don't know. I know that I survived it, and I know that that taught me that I had the ability to stop things like that from happening to me. I gained natural authority in that moment more than anything else that could have happened to me. And since then, it's like, there's no way. They're going to stay away from me, whatever they are. And, we're not going to understand everything, and not everything's going to make a nice, neat kind of narrative. And it could just be, like I said, you stuck out like a sore thumb. Spirits could see you. You were a child. You didn't know what was going on. Your ego wasn't fully developed yet. Your willpower wasn't completely developed either. And something just thought, oh, look, a tasty snack. And it may not have been personal in that sense, although it
That's
feels
true.
personal when it's happening.
Yeah.
Okay, so Astor says, "I don't feel like life is a horror movie. My life is a fantasy movie. I literally had fairies show up in therapy." Yep, you live in an alternate state. Carla says, "The movie The Craft is probably the most organic one I've seen. It's on point. It's probably 20 years old, but." Jen says, "And if they are teachers, why attack a child?" Well, I mean, I don't think that they're trying to teach us anything in particular. I think it's just their.
Yeah.
I think I've answered that. So
Yeah.
Teresa says, "When I'm grounded, I feel that everything is okay. I feel more stable and competent."
That's true. It's just yeah.
Carla says, "They weren't demons, sleep paralysis." Jen says, "What about my free will? I'm trying to make sense of my experiences." Yeah, and not necessarily sleep paralysis. The thing that happened to me, I was awake when it started. I woke up before it started. I actually moved around in my bed, so it wasn't like a dream sleep paralysis kind of state. The paralysis happened, but that was because I was immobilized and not allowed to move. And but I was fully awake and aware, and I fought it off. And that's the thing is we don't necessarily know, but you do know that you survived, so that was it. Jen says, I was definitely awake, so couldn't be sleep paralysis. It has happened when I was just in my room doing things and attacked. So working on your skill set, you know, your protections and so forth, and shoring up your sense of self and your personal authority is the thing to do. And it's
Yeah,
like, I make myself unpalatable. They no longer like my energy. And there's been times it's been a problem when I'm doing a paranormal investigation and I go to someone's house and they've left because they heard I was coming. The human ghosts don't do that, but other spirits might, you know, so it's kind of weirdly entertaining. Jam says, since election, I started watching astrology and mediums and tarot card readers. They tell the truth more. Then Fox and X and media, so many lies. There's so much misinformation out there, it's incredible.
yeah.
Sandy says, absolutely. My guides have shown me that had I not learned to honor my boundaries consistently, mediumship would not have opened up to me. Yeah, and especially with mediumship, boundaries are way important with that. Carla says, spirit doesn't attack. Shay says, Siofra, great dream. Yeah, it was fun. Carla says, poltergeist effect, kids. Robert says, so at Ian at Siofra, how to know if I'm grounded or not. Well, we're trying to tell
You
you.
know, the best, if you really want to take the best approach, I'm going to go back to Barton's book again and recommend you do the exercise with the black and white soul mirror that he describes, which is listing, you list all of your positive traits and not everything that you feel is your negative traits, and then you divide them up according to the elements, and you can see usually your failures, like mine, fall along the fiery element. So you'll find the proportion of your overbalance or underbalance will show up that way through your personality. So that's how you can tell. If you're nicely grounded, you'll have about an equal amount of all of the elements, including the earth element.
And that's the
And
ideal.
that's the best way. That means you're nicely balanced, and most people will not fall into that unless they've been practicing for years and years on the path.
And
But
working
it's
on
a good
clearing
way, but
themselves.
you have to be able to look into your own character and honestly judge your failures and your successes and put them down on paper and look at it honestly and then divide them into the elements, and that'll tell you where you stand, and that's also a map you use to go forward to improve yourself and to
Change.
balance your elements and things and
Yep.
yeah, constructive change.
Right. And Shay says, Shifa, great dream. Thank you. It was pretty cool. Carla says, poltergeists affect kids. Well, a lot of times kids are poltergeists. Robert says, oh, I did that one. Anemone says, is there any type of being that I can call upon to assist me with pulling me out of my body to astral travel? Well, if you want to find out what being might be willing to do that, you need to get Barden's second book.
Yes, there's one in there specifically. I can't remember the name, but it stops with an L. Starts with an L, and the sigil of the being actually looks somewhat like a butterfly. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's
So
multicolored.
if you
Yeah.
want to get the accurate seals and descriptions of the jobs of the spirits, magical evocation, Barden's second book has got all that in it.
I can go grab mine if you want that. Should I look up
No,
that specific
we've only
being
got
now?
7 minutes left, so
Oh, wow! I
that's
had
a
no idea.
definite
Oh,
no.
okay. I had no idea it was that close.
Yeah, we were having a lot of fun. Jam says true facts. Shay says kind of psychic equivalent of put your own oxygen mask on first before helping another. True. Very true. And Jam says I did. The Ben Ma archive says any recommendations or tips for pagan gods to support with self-empower and heal heartache.
The ones that appeal to you, I mean, there's a lot of them for that. There's a lot of Indian ones and pagan ones. I don't know specifically pagan so much. You might have a better idea on that.
Well, see, it's going to depend upon, upon exactly what it is you're looking for support. Certainly, Aphrodite has been one of my goddesses since I was little, and she might be a good one for heart issues. But then there's other goddesses that would fit that bill as well.
Yeah, it depends kind of on how. Yeah, one that resonates. You know, look up the different ones and find one that resonates with you as far as her qualities and stuff. I mean, Kali resonates for some for those areas, but for others she'd be much too extreme.
Right, for
So
empowerment.
you need to find somebody that's got the energy that works with you too for a goddess, and then work on pulling that in and working with that one. But yeah, the best way for that is to find one that fits you personally on the level that you need that kind of healing.
Yeah. Um, and that's the thing is that with with uh, with heart pain, it's difficult for people to learn how to trust again, and certainly if you've been damaged that way. And so you want to look to some kind of a empowering deity of some kind that knows about self-worth, because the thing is that usually when that happens is like it's the crushing of our dreams and our hopes for the future, and it's a death. It needs to be honored and grieved. But when we internalize it too much, then we end up looking to ourselves to see what's wrong with us and why it happened. It may just not be anything about that at all. I mean, you can learn things certainly about how to behave better in the future and so forth, because we're always learning when it comes to that. But if it delves into self negation, and then you lose that sense of individuality and worth, then those are the things that you need to work on to get those back. And caring about what other people think about you and so forth is an issue for a lot of people. And it's easy to say that it doesn't matter, but people go through what they're going through. You want to work on getting to the point where the most important relationship you have is with yourself and with the universe, and knowing your own worth, and whether that kind of love in particular is on the table or not, it is not the thing that should define you in the for all time. So finding ways to work on yourself and to help yourself heal is a good thing. So I applaud. So Trey says it doesn't matter what happens, what matters is how you respond to what happens. Yeah, actions speak louder than words. Robert says it matters that it doesn't matter on all matters. Astor says, I think a lot of empaths struggle with learned helplessness because of our experiences with bullying people and beings. It will take efforts to get our power back. Yeah, and it's worth the effort, though. Definitely worth the effort. I can tell you from being at the other end of this process that it sometimes feels hopeless when you're in the beginning. It feels like you're stuck in a tunnel with no light. You're not sure if there's an exit anywhere. I felt like I had to create things out of thin air because it was like I was stuck in a hole without a shovel, and I did not know how to get out of the hole. I had to create things to be able to get out of the hole and then get out of the tunnel. And I certainly took things very intensely and personally for a long time. It's a process, not fun. Don't recommend it. If we can avoid it, I think it's great, but it doesn't seem to be avoidable for most people. Sandcat says, I've been dealing with a very antisocial neighbor, loud music, etc. My guide came to me and said, everything will be okay. Things have improved, but I'm anxious and stressed. Any advice for protection? I don't know. Call the authorities for a noise complaint. I don't, it's like, and just have your protection up there and do your best to get earplugs so you don't have to be
Look in the
inundated.
1,000 spell books and make
Yeah, look in
some
the 5,000
cards
spell
based
books
on
and
make something to get
see if
rid
you
of
can make a
the
move.
hoodoo spell.
Yeah, I'd say look and see what you can find. Astor says, I have affirmations and practice being assertive. Sandcat says, my guide told me they're leaving, but I'm impatient. Well, trust your guide, I would hope. Robert says, is self-talk a form of shadow work? Well, yeah, I mean, how you talk to yourself is very important. It's not just shadow work. Self-talk determines a lot of things. So negative self-talk is going to break you down. Positive self-talk is going to build you up. Clarity. Um, Shadow work is about becoming more you. Carla says, most definitely about kids being poltergeists, all that unbridled energy when we were kids. Sandy says, glad I found your channel recently. I'm glad you did too. Teresa says, this was a vigorous chat today. We're sending 2024 out with a bang.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
no
you all for
kidding.
your participation. It really
This
helps
has
us
been
be in
great. We
it. Yep.
started off with a bang and just kept on going. Shay says, wonderful, wonderful live stream today. Thank you so much, She for Ian and all. Blessed be. See you all next year. That's true. Robert says, Sandcat projects energy using a smoky quartz. Imagine projecting this energy the house of that person to reflect his BS. Ben Ma Archive says, yes, healing a broken heart and rebuilding self-worth. Jam says, me too, glad I found you. Harry says, great show, Ian and Shifa. Really enjoyed. Thanks, sending you both a big cuddle, love, Faye, Scotland. All right, awesome, thank you. We love the Faye.
All these nice comments here.
Sandy says, hearts, and Carla says, blessed be Shifa and Ian, just listening for the next few minutes. Happy 2025. Jam says, yes, agree 100%. Jen says, thank you so much. That makes sense. Thank you, Shifa and Ian. You are helping me so much. Love you guys. The Ben Ma Archive says, much appreciated. I'm very glad I caught this live today. Thank you. Jen says, happy birthday to your mom and almost birthday to you. Thank you. Jam says, laugh out loud. And Jen says, my stepfather was a very evil man. I wonder if the beings I saw were attached to him somehow, since he was also abusing me since I was 6.
Could be.
Could be.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. You made
Astro
this all
says,
a wonderful chat.
yep, great conversation. Violet says, thank you. Robert says, yay, happy 2025 for everyone.
Thank you so much for all your nice comments.
Yes, it really helps. It helps us. There's no doubt about it.
It's a nice heart feeling. Thank
Yes,
you all.
to keep on going. And we're so glad that sometimes we're just on task and we can help. So see you all next year. Have a happy, fun, however you decide to use it, new moon tomorrow. And we'll talk to you guys later. Love you guys. Ian says, blessed be.